Bienvenidos. Welcome to Latino Focus, the show that honors the presence of the Latino community here in San Jose. Today in our show, we'll have a conversation with Angie Helpstrup Alvarez from Movimiento de Arte y Cultura Latinoamericana, better known as MACLA. Also flavors from Cuba, from Habana Restaurant, and music from Latido later in our show. But for now, let's open our show with Mambo performed by Genevieve Paz and Oscar David from Arthur Murray Dance Studios. Thank you again to Genevieve Paz and Oscar David from Arthur Murray Dance Studio in San Jose and Los Gatos. Excellent mambo dance performance. And now, let's continue our show. Let's welcome Executive Director from MACLA, Angie Helpstrup Alvarez. Angie, thank you very much for being here with us today to talk about MACLA.
Great, I'm thrilled to be here today and join you.
Thank you so much. Before we get started, can you share with us a little bit about yourself and how you became the Executive Director at MACLA?
Great, I'm happy to. So I grew up here in the San Jose community for most of my life. I also lived for a little while in Wisconsin, but I grew up in a diverse family. My stepfather and brother are Japanese American, and so growing up in California here in the 70s in a diverse family, multicultural family, really gave me a deep appreciation about how important it is to know one another and to learn about various cultures and to engage people. And so I actually started out at MACLA as an intern in 1994, and at the time I was a student at San Jose State University. And actually, prior to doing an internship at MACLA, I was at the San Jose Museum of Art, and then one of my colleagues, Pilar Roero Esparza, had said, "Oh, you really should get involved with MACLA. They're doing some really great work." She knew about my interest in the mural movement here in the Bay Area. We have a very rich history of Latino and Chicano murals, and she said, "Oh, they could really use your help. Get involved." And so really, in various capacities, worked from an intern to being a program assistant, a staff person, doing operations. And in 2008, the board of directors asked me to apply for the job of executive director.
Great, well, thank you very much. Tell us a little bit about the history of Macla, how it got started, and what kind of needs was it fulfilling in the community.
Great. So Macla was started in 1989. There was a group of several community activists and artists, and there are three co-founders, Maribel Alvarez, Eva Terrazas, and also Rick Sager. And they were the three co-founders of the organization. And the whole idea was at the late 80s in downtown San Jose, the city was starting to put investment into downtown as a cultural district. They were investing in the San Jose Museum of Art, and really wanted to have downtown be this arts center. And so the co-founders of the organization said, that's great. We want to make sure that Latino arts is part and parcel of downtown San Jose. And so they had this idea of founding a cultural center for the arts in downtown.
What are some of the programs and services that Macla provides to the community?
Great. So Macla has three main programming areas. One is visual arts. We have a gallery space in downtown San Jose. Adjacent to that, you'll see a black box performance space. We call it the Castellano Playhouse. And you'll have performances there when we bring in artists from out of town. Also on South First Fridays, you might learn how to dance bomba or tango there. As well as we have a really strong youth program. It's a digital media program where youth come and it's free after school or during the summers, and they learn how to create music, do video, spoken word poetry, digital photography, all of those 21st century kind of digital literacy skills.
What are some of the artists that you've invited to display their work at the facilities there?
So we've had a whole range of artists. Artists from very famous like Yolanda Lopez, who's very important for the Chicano arts movement, and Esther Hernandez, to very much up-and-coming artists like Fabiana Rodriguez, who lives in the East Bay and is really known for her work with immigration rights and helping out with kind of really propelling for like large masses of people of how do we talk about art and activism.
The youth program, how does one join the youth program, and what are the times, the dates that the programs take place? Great.
So during the school year, it's after school, Monday through Friday, and it's from about 3:30 to 6:30, 7 o'clock. So it's the after school. Some of the schools here are staggered in terms of release time. And then you come by, you can either come in person to our site at 510 South First Street and register, or also on our website has information, and you can sign up to take poetry class, video class, video production, music. And then it's great because now a lot of our youth are collaborating once they learn some of the basic skills to go and create music videos, for example.
You mentioned First Fridays. Can you share a little bit about what that is and when it takes place?
Yeah, so First Friday is the first Friday of every month, with the exception of January and July. We take off for, there's holidays near each of those. And all of the arts galleries and art spaces in South First area are open free and they're open late. So you can come by downtown, have dinner, and then walk with your family and friends to all of the various galleries. And at Macla, we always make sure that we'll have an exhibition up in the gallery space, but in the black box performance space, you can see you'll have a professional Bay Area artist or group of artists performing new music, new dance, and you'll get to watch a performance, but you'll also get to learn something. So that's a big thing that we've been doing the last few years at Macla, is that we know that everyday folks, you don't have to be an artist, want to learn about, well, how do I dance tango, or how do I do capoeira? And so Macla has been creating an environment where people can see professional dancers or musicians perform, but then you also get to join them.
Angie, thank you so much for taking time to come and share a little bit about Macla and the programs and services that you provide to the community. We really appreciate your time.
Great, thank you so much. Hope to see you at Macla soon.
Thank you, will do. Let's go with our cameras now to visit Macla and learn more about their classes and their gallery.
For the gallery, our exhibitions generally range from 3 to 4 months, and the way that we go about picking the work is also dependent upon themes, not only themes within our immediate community, but also kind of on a globalized scale. Because we are a contemporary Latino arts organization, we've really been moving towards this pan-Latino dialogue and kind of looking at that larger dialogue within this idea of Latino as being much more broad. And so our exhibitions are really determined based upon those themes. So our work really is influenced, and our exhibitions are influenced by not only our local community, but also national and global community. And what we've been doing within our exhibitions is really moving to have the voice of our community represented much more, and by offering places where our community can add to that conversation based around those themes. Our youth program called DMC, which is Digital Media and Culture Studio, is really emphasizing kind of the connection between the arts and technology and youth. And what our program does is, through generous funding, we're able to offer free courses to youth, and anything from sound production to video production. In the past, we've had gaming design to photography, and it's really giving our youth these very valuable skills and giving them a skill asset, so when they go out into the larger community, they can also use those skills to represent their voice. And the youth themselves, what we do is we basically prepare them to go out into a professional field, and I think that's where the asset value is you work with someone who is already a professional in their field and who knows the industry and knows the ins and outs of the industry, and that within itself, I think, gives those youth a head start going into that industry.
My background in the arts really started off as a teenager doing graffiti. I'm from the Central Valley, so a lot of my friends were really into graffiti art, and we'd get together, paint local walls, and that's where I really got into visual art. I received my BFA from San Jose State University in pictorial arts, and later went on for an MFA at Syracuse University in painting. I'm teaching contemporary art making from the studio to the streets. The reason I decided to teach this class is because I wanted to take a different approach on art making. A lot of artists, for example, they work in the studio, so they don't really have that experience with working outside, connecting with the community, or doing collaborative work. So this class is an opportunity to let the students do some collaborative work, as well as taking these approaches and using them out into the public eye. We explore different materials such as print making, stencil making. We do some paintings in there as well. We're also looking at different artists that have a street background, but also have a studio-based practice and work in the galleries as well. So I opened the class up to pretty much a large array of different skill levels. The reason I also did that is because I felt that it would be a good approach to let students learn from each other as well. And I think that's always the best way when you're learning something, is learning from other people as well as from the instructor.
So once the group agrees to a project and a location, I want you guys to also consult me. So this could be...
I really hope that people understand the value of the arts locally, but also what that does for your immediate community and your youth. And I challenge people to really support your arts and keep existing programs that are socially invested and invested in the community going.
And later in our show, flavors from Cuba, brought to us by Anali Bergantino from restaurant 998 Cuba. But before that, let's hear a new tip to keep our money saved with financial expert Marcos Lira. Adelante.
I am Marcos Lira, a certified financial planner. And today I'm excited to talk about college planning part 2, ways to pay for college. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York reports that there is close to $902 billion in outstanding student loan debt. Yikes! Many times, the Hispanic community sacrifices their own retirement and personal savings to pay for the children's college tuition, in the hopes that their children have a better life than them. In the first part of the college planning segment, I spoke about exploring free options for paying for college and planning ahead. Now we'll focus on saving accounts specifically created to save for college. An option you can explore after you've looked into other forms of aid. The first one is called a Coverdell Education Savings Account, and it allows you to save up to $2,000 per designated beneficiary. The second one is called a 529 plan, and that allows you to save up to $14,000 before running into any tax implications. Many financial institutions offer these types of accounts. I recommend you first visit and ask your bank about them. For a detailed comparison, the benefits and restrictions of these types of accounts, please reach out to me on Twitter at MHLera. As with everything, the best way to save is early and often. Until next time, and remember, investing today to enjoy your dividends tomorrow. Gracias.
Analí Bergantino, thank you very much for being with us here on our show to come and talk about La Habana, the restaurant in San Jose. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You were born in Cuba?
I was born in Cuba, in La Habana, and I came here 7 years ago, and I started working in the Habana Cuba restaurant. We are authentic Cuban food, and we are located in San Jose, California, in Reyes Street.
So you've brought some authentic dishes from Cuba to share with us. Why don't we start? We have there some black beans.
The black beans, frijoles negros, is really authentic Cuban food, and we eat it with steamed rice together. Also, we have moros y cristianos, que is the black beans and white rice together, we cook together. It's really traditional Cuban food.
What's the name of that again?
Moros y cristianos.
Moros y cristianos.
Because our culture came from Spain and also Africa, and then we had the moros, the black beans, and the cristianos, the white rice.
Interesting. Thank you very much for explaining that. Now, right here we have some very traditional dishes, lechon.
Oh, here is the slow roasted pork. That one is really traditional. It's our signature dish. We cook it for one night. We marinate it with citrus, garlic, tomatoes, and also cumin or cilantro. And then the another day, we put it on the oven for 12 hours. And then we usually eat that in Christmas Eve. So we celebrate it with slow roasted pork, black beans with plantains.
So it's el lechon.
El lechon, a la cubana.
A la cubana. And we have here
the rabo encendido, the oxtail on fire. It's rabo encendido, but it doesn't mean that it's made with hot sauce. It's just with the spices, onions, garlic, red wine, also olives, and
it's braised.
It's braised.
For how long do you cook it?
We cook it for 8 hours.
8 hours.
And we eat it with white rice together.
Mixed together,
yeah.
Great. And we have here some desserts and also a non-dessert that's used.
A non-dessert. The sweet plantain is really popular and traditional. Eat it with the food.
With the beans and the rice.
With the beans and the rice, yes.
Great. And how do you make that? What are some of the ingredients?
Yeah, it's a plantain. It's a big banana that we cut it and fry. But it's sweet.
And sweet.
By itself. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Sweet.
And we have here another dessert.
Cascos de guayaba.
Cascos de guayaba.
Guava shells.
Guava shells.
We cut the guava and took off all the seeds inside, and we cook it with sugar.
So how long does it take to cook that?
Like 5 hours.
5 hours?
Until it's really soft.
So very
and
soft.
Thick.
Nice. Well, thank you very much. Again, you're located at 239 Race Street in San Jose. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing some of these traditional dishes that are eaten in Cuba. And thank you very much for bringing those flavors to San Jose.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Latido started about 10 years ago. I have a larger band called Candela. That band's been around since 1987 and it's got 3 recordings out. But about 10 years ago, I decided to create a new group, a smaller group, a little bit more of a tighter, smaller sound, easier to travel, easier to budget. And also it was inspired with a lot of groups that I had seen in Cuba, small groups playing in restaurants, where quartets, quintets, even trios create a lot of sound with very few reduced amount of musicians. So I started searching for musicians who could double up and do more than one thing, playing a keyboard or playing a piano and singing, playing an instrument, playing percussion, singing background vocals and playing. So multi-talented musicians. Well, my passion for music started in Montevideo, Uruguay. I was born and raised in Montevideo, and when I was a little kid, around 4, 5, 6 years old, I was already listening to a lot of candombe, the national rhythm from Uruguay, our Afro-Uruguayan rhythm, and going to the carnavales and going to the tablados to see performers and see the parades of the drumming, and that's what attracted me to that. And then also at the Catholic school that I used to go, they had the singing mass. So as a part of the religious ceremony, I could be also a musician. So I became instantly very religious through the music because I wanted to play an instrument. So that's how I started. My big inspiration was in 1973, listening to Carlos Santana in the recordings. And many years later, I had the pleasure to share the stage with him and have some of his musicians play in my band. I currently do have some musicians from Santana in my band and in my recordings. So for me, it was like a circle, becoming complete to be able to end up in the Bay Area as an adult doing that. But what it really opened the door for me in the Bay Area was that I had a vision and an understanding that in order to get into this scene, I had to provide work rather than take work from other musicians. And it wasn't easy, but I think what I can say to anybody who's trying to start with any profession in anything is, be prepared for the yes and be understandable of the no, and don't take it personal. Just if one door closes, there's going to be another door that is going to open. It's always like that.
I started playing trumpet in the 4th grade and piano formally in the 8th grade. But I make a living playing both. But if I was to give you a percentage, it's probably about 70, 30, 60, 40 piano to trumpet. And the majority of the bands that I play with nowadays, they have me play both. When I first heard the trumpet, it spoke to me. It really spoke to me, and it captivated my attention. I remember going home to my parents and saying, I need a trumpet, I need a trumpet, I need a trumpet. And I bothered them for about a week. I wouldn't stop. Imagine, how old are you in the 4th grade? 10, 11? So they saw this interest in me, and they said, oh, okay, let's go get him a trumpet. And that's what started me in the music. I started playing classical piano in the 8th grade. I ended up winning a scholarship at this school in San Francisco, at the Community Music Center in San Francisco. And they offered piano classes, music theory, and trumpet classes as well. So I was getting both. So it was a great exposure, and I got a lot of information from them. I play with different genres, in different groups that play different genres of music. For example, jazz, Afro-Caribbean, which is a huge field, Mexican folkloric music, reggae, hip-hop, R&B, vast amount of genres, so I can make a living playing different music. And that's always something that I tell every musician that I meet, or upcoming musicians, they try to make yourself as versatile as possible, and that you'll always have work.
I started playing timbales at a very young age. I come from a musical family. In my house, there were always instruments. My grandfather played many instruments. My father played instruments. My uncle was the original timbalero from Santana. And so there were always instruments around. So I picked up timbales at a very young age. But what influenced me, one of the things that influenced me the most was when I started, I grew up in San Francisco, and my jazz band teacher said, why don't you try to go to La Habana, Cuba, and study Cuban music. So I started going to Cuba a little bit more than 20 years ago, I think maybe 21, 22 years ago. And I studied at the Escuela Nacional del Arte and at Instituto de la Música. And it was one of my greatest experiences. I mean, I've done many gigs and played with a lot of people, locally, internationally, but My experience in La Habana, Cuba, just amazing. Nothing else like it. So what I would suggest to any young musicians is to study their instrument, study their idols, and just practice a lot, because that's what I did when I was very young. I studied a lot, and I'm glad I did, you know, when I had less responsibilities than what I have now. I spent countless hours. I remember I used to practice 8, 10, 12 hours a day, you know, in La Habana and here in San Francisco in the Bay Area. So just study as much as you can.
Music is a creation, and music is also mathematics, can be very scientific too. But the chemistry among the musicians is what creates a performance, it creates a scene. So for me, the most important thing is the level of communication with my band members. The ultimate decision is mine, but I don't call the shots as far as the music is, and I give my musicians a lot of solos, a lot of openness, a lot of musical flexibility, and but you know, they need to show up and dress up and do the thing, and at the end of the night, go home with a big smile.
Thank you to our audience for supporting Latino Focus. That's all for our show today. And remember that in each community, there's beauty and strength. Gracias y hasta pronto.